Hey there, all you ghouls and goblins. Radio 85.9 proudly presents Horror Zoid with your hosts, Stevie Scares and Natalie Nightmare, talking all things horror from the 80s, 90s, and today. Today's episode is brought to you by the Ghost Pro Camera. Capture your spirits anytime, anywhere with the Ghost Pro Camera, sold wherever you get your paranormal supplies. Welcome back to another episode of Horror Zoid, everybody. I'm Stevie Scares.
And I'm Natalie Nightmare.
And today, on a very special episode of Horror Zoid. It's a little different. Normally we talk all about movies because we are movie buffs, but today it's all about real paranormal experiences that have happened to Natalie Nightmare and Stevie Scares. This is real shit. It's about to get real. It's about to go down. Hope y'all are ready for some real shit. It's not about movies today.
Yeah, it's all about true paranormal.
Yeah, this is, we're going to go through some stories, some experiences that we have had individually, together. It's going to be a real fun ride, trust me. You guys are going to enjoy this. If we can leave you scared shitless, then that's the goal.
I want to give you chills and goosebumps at least once or twice in this episode.
But with spooky season upon us, it's October. At the point of this being released, we're a little over a week away from Halloween.
It's so exciting.
So what better time to do it than now? And we're super pumped. We're super excited. We're going to tell you our ghost stories, but we want to hear about your ghost stories. We want you to send us your ghost stories at horrorzoidpod@gmail.com. Drop us comments on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. All the links are on horrorzoid.com, so you can go find it and tell us all your spooky stuff too, and we'll read it on the air. If it's really fucking juicy, we'll read it on the air.
Yeah, give us a scary one.
And we'll also talk about some of our favorite paranormal experts that are out there in the field that have kind of inspired us and will continue to inspire us to go find more ghosts and more spooky shit. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's what's coming up in this episode. Before we get into it, though, I also want to say real quick, thank you to everybody who's been listening. Thank you to everybody who's been checking out the podcast, whether it's through Anchor, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, however you consume it. We're grateful for you.
Very much.
And don't forget that Apple Podcasts, you can review the podcast, review Horror Zoid, let us know how we're doing, let us know what you think of it. If you think we're awesome, let us know. If you think it's shit, tell us, we can improve. But yeah, Apple Podcasts, review it, let us know how we're doing, and that's how we grow. So thank you again for everybody who's been tuning in.
Yes, very much.
But let's get into it, though. We're going to talk paranormal, personal experiences, and I know Natalie has one from her childhood that she would like to kick things off with, and I'm gonna brace you guys. It's pretty fucking spooky. It gives me chills. She's told it to me a lot, and each time I hear it, I just get chills and goosebumps every time. So I'll let Natalie go ahead and take it away.
Yeah. So we were hoping to have some more horror stories to read from you guys. Hopefully, if you guys like this, you will send us your very own at horrorzoidpod@gmail.com as well, just to say that. But yeah, I feel like I've had an entire life of paranormal things happen, but not in the typical sense of, I feel like what you hear where people deal with it consistently through their lives. But I did have a pretty big experience when I was little. We lived in a pretty old, creaky house, the big old heaters in the corners of the room, just a spooky old place. And our back porch had this furnace that I, as a child, always called the Home Alone furnace because it was one of those big cast iron, you could see the fire in it. Scary when it kicked on. But there was a particular night that it was storming. It was spooky outside. I still don't do well with storms at night. And something about it made me get up and go to my parents' room, which is across the hall from mine as a child. And I was probably 7, maybe, at the time. Maybe 8, 9. I'm not sure. But I do as one does as a child. When you're scared, you go into your parents' room and you ask to stay in there for a little bit. And in that process, there was this horrible, horrible loud noise coming from the back porch where the furnace was, which the way our home was set up, that was basically on the other side of my parents' bedroom wall. So we woke up. I'm freaking out. My dad's telling me to calm down. My sister, whose bedroom's on the other side of the house, is screaming for us over this horrible loud noise. We can barely hear each other. And my parents both get up and leave the room and leave me, this little 7-8-year-old, in their bed, storming outside this horrible, loud, screeching noise coming from the other room. And I gave myself goosebumps thinking about it because it's something that still visually sticks with me. But as I watched them both leave, they told me to stay put. They were going to go see what was going on, what the noise was. And I glance back the other way and I look down towards the end of the bed. And as what I could only say as an adult now would be a shadow person. But I knew it was looking at me, even though I couldn't see its face. There were no eyes, there was nothing. It was just this big black mass figure of a man at the end of the bed staring at me. And I was alone, and my parents couldn't hear me. And I probably let out a nice screech, and I covered up my head with a blanket, and I never saw it in that house again. But it stuck with me for days. I was terrified to go to my parents' room because that's where it was. I didn't want to go in there anymore. And I never saw it again. The entire time I lived in that house, probably for 20 years. And it was the only time I ever saw it. There were a lot of weird little spooky things that would happen in the house, but that was the one that stuck with me. And I don't think I really told anyone about it until I was an adult. And I told my mom probably when I was, 26, 27. And all she could do was laugh and say, well, thanks for telling us now that we're not living in the house. But yeah, that's my story. It's the only full, I don't really want to say apparition, because obviously in our adult lives, we've learned a lot more about these classifications of paranormal and what's an apparition or what's like a shadow figure. But it was the darkest, deepest black I could ever imagine, and it looked at me.
Like I said, that is, every time I hear that story from you, I am more and more uncomfortable, more and more unsettled, more and more disturbed, and it comes clearer to me. Like I can picture what you were going through as a kid in that moment.
Yeah.
Now, me personally, I never had anything happen to me when I was a kid. I remember being a kid and, we would tell each other ghost stories.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm a writer, so like one of my favorite things to do as a kid was to come up with spooky stories. Still is.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, we would do that, but I honestly can't sit here and say I ever really had anything paranormal happen to me when I was a kid. It wasn't until I was much older, and in fact, really, it didn't really ramp up until I met you.
I guess. Do you think I'm spooky?
Right.
I guess it comes with me, and there's something interesting about that too. And I'm gonna interrupt you for a second here and just let everybody know that whenever I met Stevie, he was a skeptic.
And I still try to approach things as a skeptic in a lot of environments, because I think if one thing I always pride myself on is if there's a group of people and everybody is freaking out, there has to be somebody who is remaining calm and rational. And
right.
and if I don't see anybody else taking on that role, I kind of take it upon myself. And coming from the vantage point of being a skeptic for so long, it just comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not that I'm trying to be a dick. It's not that I'm trying to be rude. It's that if it's genuinely paranormal, if it is genuinely inexplicable, it will terrify me. It will shake me to my core. You know that.
Yeah, I do. We're going to get into that here in a bit.
Yes, and I'm going to talk about some shit. But at the same time, I don't want to be that person that's like, I don't want to be the boy that cried wolf, where everything is a spirit, everything is a ghost, everything is a specter. Because a lot of these things that people talk about can be explained rationally.
Well, and me and you have talked about that, and it's something we're going to get into. But even, some of the paranormal shows that we've watched over, decades of them being on air, we really lean towards the people who tend to want to find what a noise could have been or what this could have been. And it's, it's something, even as I think about it, you're talking about being the level-headed one and, not really having anything happen as you were a kid. we had a couple of things.
Not that I can remember, at least. Maybe
Right.
something did, but it just didn't stick with me the same way it did with you.
But that's what I'm kind of getting at. I sent that story into actually another podcast years ago. Tony and Jenny Bruschi have Real Ghost Stories online. I actually sent that one in anonymously. Not that I care if anyone knows about it, but it's whenever, they read the stories and they kind of give their little thoughts and input. And something that Jenny said that really kind of sent a chill down my spine was, what if it was just, no pun intended with it being storming, that it was the perfect storm and you caught it looking at you? What if it had always been there, but for that brief moment, you saw it? And that, it freaks me out. It gives me goosebumps to this day because I think about how many times in that house there were things that kind of creeped me out. But as a kid who doesn't know enough about that yet, there's probably so many things that happened to me and friends that I knew in their homes that we just didn't think about as paranormal because you're kids,
Right. Well, and as kids, when you do bring that stuff up, adults immediately dismiss you.
Sure.
It's just
And that's probably why I never talked about
Right,
it. Growing
right.
up in a religious home, they would have been like, "Oh, it was a demon. What are you doing at the?" It's just something I never brought up. But I think there's probably a lot of noises or smells or things that happen in there that we were like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." And
Yeah.
you just run along on your day because you've got shit to do as a kid.
Well, and it's funny that you say that about what Jenny said about it being the perfect storm, because not to get into too many details here. I mean, you and I have gone on about this forever, but I don't know if I've said it before on the show, but I am an outright atheist. Like that is just my stance on everything. You believe what you want to believe, and I have no judgment on anybody, and I hope they would not judge me for mine. But I am. So I don't believe in ghosts and paranormal in the traditional sense, like, ghosts and angels and spirits and souls and things like that. But I do believe any paranormal that we encounter throughout our day-to-day lives is the result of energies. Because as somebody who values the opinion of scientists, the research of scientists, and the hard work of people in the scientific fields, I value that. And one thing that all science has fundamentally proven to us is that energy exists.
Yeah.
And energy cannot be stomped out. It can only be transferred.
Sure.
Energy cannot end. It cannot die. It can only be transferred. Therefore, my opinion, anything paranormal that anybody is experiencing is typically energy. So when she says it's the perfect storm, storm, yeah, absolutely. It's literally electricity coming from the fucking sky. What more energy do you need?
I was gonna say that's one thing that's interesting about the dark and stormy night trope is what I've learned after years of listening to their podcast alone, let alone watching stuff on TV. But there is something about obviously electricity, it energizes things, and water is a conduit.
Bingo.
And,
so a storm is
right.
perfect.
So
circumstances,
storms,
yeah.
you get a lot of bathroom stories where people are in the shower running the bath and things like that. And I feel like that has a lot to do with some of the hauntings and paranormal experiences that people have. Is the dark and stormy night is because it's energizing, something.
Right.
And
so if you're like me and you believe that anything people encounter paranormal is just energies, it's clear. Yeah.
Well, and that's why, and I don't know what show it was, but years ago, this is probably 15 years ago, there was something I was listening to or watching, and they mentioned, the building that had been redone, and everyone talked about seeing this woman walk down part of the hall in which she would go through the wall. And if you think about the time that this woman, which the way she looks, her time period, I heard the term residual haunting. And I was like, that makes sense to me, because if someone does
and in
the
science,
same
the
thing,
term residual energy is prevalent in a lot of studies.
Exactly. I love that. And it's just the idea of, a lot of these things, they're people that were in places for a long time. There was a lot going on. And, if you're seeing just the residual energy of this woman walking down the hall and going through a doorway that's no longer there.
I was
That's
about
why
to say,
she's
I was
going
like,
through a wall.
Right. She's going through a wall because
Right.
back in the day, that was probably a door.
Exactly.
So,
because so many of the places that you see hauntings at where they do that, it's because they've been reconstructed or rebuilt. You know, you've had places that have burnt down and they build a new building. Of course, things are going to be different. I love that, and that's kind of, you know, as an ex-Christian who used to believe that, you know, spirits could come and go as they pleased from whatever fucking realm they were in, or they would be stuck here. And, you know, you have the whole, we have to help them cross over. And I get that there's still a concept to that I can't quite explain, but I think the energy thing just makes a lot of sense to me as someone who's become a atheist witch.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the best explanation I have, because I have encountered things. While I am a skeptic, and that's how I approach things, because to me, I want to rule out all natural explanations. Why would you want to leave any room for doubt? That's kind of my opinion. So I don't feel like I'm a skeptic as much as I just try to eliminate every possibility so that I can be 100% certain this is normal or paranormal.
But you've definitely, you know, since I've known you, have opened up a lot more to these otherworldly, and kind of seen a whole new side. And part of that's because, well, guys, I used to live in a haunted apartment, and he moved in with me.
Right. Yeah, we will get to the haunted apartment here later in the episode, but
so stick around. That's a good fucking scary story.
Yeah, it's terrified the shit out of us for a few years there. But I want to talk about some of my own personal experiences that I've had solo. Again, most of it as an adult, because when I was a kid, just not something I remember happening.
You didn't
me.
have a shadow man at the end of your bed.
No, I was interested in the paranormal. I love spooky
Me
stories.
too.
I love ghosts.
Oh my god, the ghost stories
movies.
and all that shit you could get at the Scholastic Book Fair. I got every single book I could get my hands on as a kid for that.
Yeah, I love that stuff, but I just don't remember anything happening to me that I can sit here and point out 100% was paranormal. But as an adult, I've had several things, and one of the big things in my life that has caused a lot of the paranormal activity is one of the places I go to for my job. I travel, we live in Indiana, but I travel out to California a lot for work, and the place that we end up staying is one of the most haunted locations in all of California. The location I'm talking about is the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. It is, first off, I just want to say it's one of the most beautiful structures you will find in all of American history, in all of American architecture. It is absolutely gorgeous. But it's interesting, it's fascinating because they've shot movies there. They've shot music videos there. Scenes from Independence Day, scenes from Ghostbusters, Beverly Hills Cop, just to name a few movies that were shot there. Episodes of New Girl were shot there. Taylor Swift shot a music video there. It has incredible, rich history and a lot of activity. The other thing I want to say before I get into the stories here is, if anybody's listening to this and you are thinking about going, I cannot recommend it enough. It is just the location.
It's a beautiful place.
Right. Natalie's been there before. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of downtown LA. No, no shit for anyone that lives there. But I live in small town Indiana, and the city kind of terrifies me. Even downtown Indy, it's about as big as I'm okay with. And downtown LA, it's huge, it's massive, but there's a lot of cool history and really amazing buildings. And when the first time I went to the Millennium Biltmore, I wanted to walk it for hours. It's beautiful and it's haunting, and it's, the ornate decor inside. Absolutely, 1,000%. I feel like I've got friends that are like, we should go. Like, just go for a weekend.
Again, I can't recommend it enough. Plus, the staff is just incredibly super sweet, nice.
Yeah.
Accommodating, hospitable. I can't say enough nice things. They are some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. I love them all. It's like the home away from home for me. It's like my second family. But the kind of going over some of the history so you get an idea of how haunted it really is. It was opened in 1923, and they held the Oscars there in those early years of film. In fact, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences was founded by people who were staying and enjoying a lunch at the Biltmore. And there's even an anecdote of the guy who was the art director for MGM, designed the Oscar statue on a napkin at the Biltmore. So really cool history there. But the darkness of the Biltmore comes from the fact that a young woman entered and left a few times there by the name of Elizabeth Short. And if you don't know who Elizabeth Short is, she has become known as the Black Dahlia. Black Dahlia, of course, famous because in 1947, I want to say, her body was discovered on the side of a road in a ditch. She was violently bisected, and she had cuts and bruises, and her blood was drained from her body. She had a Glasgow smile upon her face. It was just one of the most brutal crimes in history, and to this day, nearly 100 years later, it has not been solved. Just truly bizarre case. But the reason she is tied to the Biltmore is because it is the last place she was seen alive. The Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, last place Elizabeth Short was seen alive. And they commemorate her with a picture in a hallway near the lobby of the hotel. And that hallway alone, I've got some photos, I've got some videos, and we'll try to share them on TikTok and Instagram and things like that. So
I'm eager to share those. Just seeing them is really cool. I remember seeing her portrait in the hallway, and I was like, well, this is interesting. And there's plenty more photos and stuff in that hall for the history of the hotel. Like it's so much.
It's a lot to take in. But the thing about that hallway is her photo is the only one with its own individual spotlight on it.
Yes.
Which gives it this very creepy aura. But I will 100%, I can sit here and confirm this. I'm not bullshitting you when I say this. When you stand in front of that picture, it is fundamentally different temperature-wise in front of that picture than it is anywhere else in that hallway. It's colder.
Well, and you said you've even talked to staff, with as many times as you've been out there. And I mean, so many people, they all have their own stories working there. I can't imagine being someone that's going through those hallways at night.
Well, I've been through those hallways at night myself, because we work there, and we film there, we shoot there, we do all sorts of different shit, and we're at all hours of the night. And it is truly terrifying being in that hallway, being in that hotel. Being in there at night is completely different than being in there in the day.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely cold spots, which are dead giveaway of paranormal activity. People have said they've seen Elizabeth walking through the hallways. I have not. I will sit here and tell you right now, I've never physically seen anything. I've never seen anything visually. I've heard things. I've felt things, but I've never seen anything. So I can sit here and tell you that. Like, don't expect me to have a story quite as cool as Natalie's. But with the Biltmore, it's there's other little stuff that I want to get into before I get into one specific story. We've just had so many different little things happen to us in our time staying there, especially this year for some reason, which I kind of attribute to the fact that during the pandemic, the hotel was kind of shut down. But it looks like they were allowing people to come in and do paranormal investigations, which I can only imagine stirred up a bunch of activity. Because when we went back after the pandemic, it was a lot more activity.
Well, a lot of people have had the theory of the more activity and interaction you have, the more you're going to get.
Right, they're going to seek it out.
Yeah, it's an interaction that, coming back to this word, gives energy to what's there.
Of course.
And it's, it's like all the tropes of don't acknowledge anything. It's like, well, everyone's acknowledging it now.
Right,
so.
right. And you can tell, it's like I said, it's been a stark contrast from when I originally stayed there to this year. But yeah, we've had little things. Like I remember there was one of the more recent stories. Roommate and I were literally about to fall asleep. And the way the rooms are set up, you've got two beds, and in the middle you have a joint nightstand that you share with a light and a phone. He had a glass of water sitting on the nightstand. He was turned away from me. I was turned towards the nightstand. He was turned away from the nightstand. So we're kind of basically facing the same wall, if that gives you a visual. So we're facing the same wall. He's turned away from the nightstand. I'm facing the nightstand. I'm about to fall asleep. And all of a sudden, as soon as I close my eyes and I'm sleeping, I'm awakened by the phone is off the hook. There's a loud noise. The phone is off the hook. The glass of water's on the floor, and I can hear the dial tone of the phone. And I look. He's still turned away. He's got his headphones on. That's why he didn't really stir. And as soon as he sees me get up, he turns over. He's like, "What happened?" I'm like, "I don't know." Literally, the phone falls off the hook. The glass of water's on the floor. we don't know what happened. We literally have no explanation for why this happened. It was totally bizarre and really shook us. The fact that we were able to get to sleep after that is a miracle. But but these things happen all the time. And one thing I will say before I get into more stories is you're going to hear a lot of people talk about the Biltmore, and you're going to hear everybody say, "Oh, floor X is the most haunted floor. Floor Y is the most haunted floor." They're all fucking haunted. You're going to hear people say, "Floor 5 is the most haunted. Floor 9 is the most haunted." But they're all
But the
fucking
ground
haunted.
floor, I haven't been there obviously as much as you. Sometimes you travel out there solo, but the base, it wasn't the basement. I think it was the ground floor, in those little back hallways and stuff where it gets towards like the gym and the pool. The first time I was there, I was uncomfortable just the way it felt. And I'm super sensitive. I know a lot of people, you hear that and you're like, oh, bullshit. But it's like, no, I feel those energies like it's touching my skin.
Well, and for somebody like me who hasn't had a lot of paranormal experiences, I feel it.
Right.
And maybe I'm becoming
that's
more
how
aware of it
strong
though,
it
as I
is,
get
though.
older. But it is so strong. And you mentioned those back hallways as it leads to the gym. The one that we talked about earlier, water is a conduit, and one of the most haunted areas in that hotel is the pool.
Yeah.
The pool itself has been one of the most haunted locations in the Biltmore for years. Several people, I've heard through the grapevine, have had some of the most intense paranormal experiences of their lives. There's one story that was iterated to me about a gentleman who had his kid at the pool, and he was relaxing on a chair. His kid was playing. He wasn't playing in the pool. He was playing around the pool. And he told his dad. He said, "Dad, can you get this little boy to stop messing with me?" And the guy looks up and he doesn't see anybody. He's like, "Just go back to playing." So he's like, "Okay, Dad." And he goes back and he's like, he comes back. The kid comes back and he starts bothering his dad. And he's like, "Dad, this kid's messing with me. Can you get him to leave me alone?" And he looks up and the guy looks up. He's like, "There's nobody here." But then he looks down and he sees wet footprints. There was nobody else in the pool. He and his son had not gotten in the pool, but there were wet footprints. So immediately he literally went to the company he was working for, told him to switch hotels, and he and his son ended up staying in a completely different hotel from everybody else.
See, and all right, I have goosebumps because first off, you haven't told me that yet.
Yeah.
But also, that kind of goes into one of your experiences the last time involving what seemed to be a child.
Yes. So when I was there, one of the most recent times, I was there with a few different people. And again, I don't think we've gotten into this, but Natalie describes herself as an empath. Somebody who is more in tune, not just with the supernatural, but just feelings and emotions and things that you can't necessarily see in general. Just you and I'm probably explaining it poorly here, but you feed off of emotions. You feel emotions stronger than most people that are coming. Like people radiate emotions and energy all the time.
Yes.
And while some of us are not as sensitive to it, you have a heightened sensitivity to that.
Right. It's like, in a simplified way, and I know a lot of people feel this, and some people feel it probably don't know what it is, so maybe this will help somebody, but I kind of have to put up like a mental barrier between me and other things sometimes if I feel too overwhelmed. And that can be if it's a place that just feels really creepy and spooky, or if it's just someone who's really mad, and they may not even be mad at me, but I can walk into a room and be by somebody, and it's like I just feel it. It's like little pinpricks on my arms sometimes.
Not to oversimplify it again, but it's like when dogs can sense that it's about to rain or
Yes.
something.
No, exactly.
It's a very similar sensation.
It is
as you've described it.
Yeah.
But the reason I say this is because the last time I was staying at the Biltmore, I was staying with some people who also consider themselves empaths to one extent or another. One guy feels very well versed, has had several experiences that he's iterated to me. One girl was there with us. She's very new to it. She feels very in tune with it, but she's a novice when it comes to her empathic abilities. So, and I'm kind of in the middle, whereas I approach things as a skeptic. I definitely feel things. I don't see things, but I can feel things and hear things. And especially in a place like the Biltmore, those energies just are palpable. So we set out. We were all getting ready to fly out. None of us really wanted to go to sleep. We wanted to stay awake. So what better way to stay awake than to go looking for ghosts? So that's what we did. And it started. We were in the hotel, we're in the hallway with the portrait of the Black Dahlia, and there are, again, other photos in that hallway. And one thing I will say here, even though I've never seen anything, I can't help but shake the feeling that over the years, the other photos in that hallway, I just feel like, this is going to sound really fucked up, they're not the way I remember them.
Mm-hmm.
They're they almost get more strange as the years go on. It's like every time I look at them, these people who are supposed to be these glamorous celebrities and these stars of the time look more haggard. Like, they look scary. They do. They look like they look monstrous almost at this point. I've been staying there so many years, and maybe it's a placebo effect of just being in a spooky haunted hotel.
You guys were running through the
right,
kind of quiet, everyone's sleeping hallways at like 2 a.m.
Precisely. It's so creepy. Like I said, I don't rule out that it's just not in my head, because I am, I approach
but
things
it adds
as a skeptic.
to the creep factor
It
of
really
going
does.
through
And
there.
all the photos are black and white. They're all really old timey, because when the Oscars
You're
were
waiting to
hosted
see
in the
Jack
Biltmore-
Nicholson in the front smiling like in The Shining.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's pictures like that.
Yeah,
that are through this
it
hallway.
is.
Like, no exaggeration. There's one big picture from the Oscars one year where you look at it and you're like, holy shit, it is the Overlook 4th of July bash fucking thing that they did, or New Year's bash, whatever it was. But it does. It's very Overlook Hotel in that hallway, and we're walking through there, and both people I was with that were empaths immediately felt something in that hallway, and we get to the kind of this in between this intermittent area where it is where you're about to go from that hallway with the Black Dahlia's photo into where the gym and the pool are, and immediately we all had to stop because we felt the energy was stronger right before you get there. And like I said, you're about to hit the area with the pool, which is water's a conduit.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy who I was with, who is the more experienced empath, he has said to me several times, he's like, it's a little boy. He said that the energy that he feels overwhelmingly, that he's encountered more often than not in that hotel, is a little boy. And we told this to the girl who's the less experienced empath, and the more experienced empath, he told me what the boy's name is, and we were kind of trying to test the girl's abilities, this woman's abilities as far as an empath. So we said, do you get any feeling from the boy? She kept saying, well, she's like, I don't. She's like, I feel he's here, but I want to know his name. And the more experienced empath says to her, he says, well, I tell you this, it starts with a J, and literally without missing a beat, she goes, Jimmy. And he stops dead in his tracks, and he's like, that's exactly what it is. This little boy who haunts the hotel, his name is Jimmy. And then later that night, she describes what he looks like what he's wearing. And she describes a little boy in kind of a novelty sailor's outfit, and that my friend literally had to put his phone down. He's like, he couldn't believe that she just sent him that's how she described him, because that's exactly how he sees him.
That's so wild.
So they both saw the same thing without, and I'm telling you, I was with them this whole time. They never had a chance to compare notes. They never had a chance to, spook me out here.
It's like saying Jimmy. It's like, oh, well, maybe.
Right.
But it's like little sailor outfits.
Right.
Like, that's not the first thing I'd think of,
And like I said, I was with them the whole night, both of them. They didn't have a chance to sit here and the whole time we were there, the whole week, I was with both of them for, most of the, pretty much the entire trip. And they didn't have the time to compare notes. I could sit here and tell you that. As a skeptic, that was my first thought, is like, oh, they're fucking with me. I can't point out a time when they were able to do that.
Right.
So that freaked me out. So we decided to go down the stairs towards the pool. But we stopped. And again, we asked this woman who's a less experienced empath, she's trying to learn her abilities. We're trying to help her kind of get control of everything. We're trying to help her out here. So we gave her the option. Do you want to go into the room where there's the pool, or these stairs go farther into kind of subterranean levels of the hotel where you are literally underground basement level shit?
Mm-hmm.
Not great. Not fun stuff. But she's like, no, I feel like we got to keep going down. So we go down and we hit these double doors, and we come out this set of double doors, and we're immediately greeted to this ballroom, and this ballroom is again, it's kind of sub-level. It is where they hosted the Oscars. It is the actual room where they hosted the Oscars all these years, so you can immediately tell a lot of energy, a lot of spooky shit here, a lot of people have crossed through here. And in fact, some paranormal investigators have said in this room they've seen the spirit of a little girl and have had video footage of it, and I've seen it. It's fucking, it's creepy. But we were there the day before. It was pitch black, and we were already like, nope, let's get the fuck out of here. So the fact that we were drawn back to this room a second time, we knew we had to do something. We knew we had to go in. So we go in, and I can't go past the entrance because to the left is a fucking grand piano. And immediately, I knew there was something negative attached to this piano. I knew that if I walked any further, I was walking into basically a room that was just elbow to elbow spirits and energy. Like, I could just tell it. And I did not want to go in there. And I told them, I'm like, guys, I can't go any further. I can tell there's something negative attached to that piano. This room does not feel welcoming at all. So we're in there for a few minutes. We decide to go back out. We go back out. We're at the entrance of this room. Those double doors we just passed through are behind us. And we're kind of just like talking. We're all kind of jazzed up because we felt the energy in that room. And we're talking. And all of a sudden, literally without missing a beat, boom! Giant slam against the doors behind us. And I'm like, holy shit, what was that? My immediate thought is somebody knew we were coming down here and decided to fuck with us. So I go open the door. Nobody. Not a soul. Not a single fucking person. And let me tell you, when you open these doors, there's a set of stairs going up, there's a set of stairs going down. They're not carpeted, they're not padded. You're going to see or hear somebody going up or going down those stairs. We did not hear or see a single soul, yet it sounded like somebody slammed their entire body into that door and scared the shit out of us. That is easily the most paranormal thing that's ever happened to me in that fucking hotel, and it's because we went looking for it and we were encouraging it. And throughout our stay there, we had other little things happen. Like later that night, we went into the gym, into the pool. The woman who's the less experienced empath said she felt a little boy in there. She even said, she's like, is there a ball in here? I get the sense he wants to play with the ball. And literally, you look across there, and there is a ball. And they're motion-activated lights. On the other side of the gym, where there's nobody, not a soul to see, light comes on.
Nope.
Right above that ball. So that whole night, it was just fucking, it was uncomfortable, it was freaky. We had paranormal shit out the wazoo. The woman who's the less experienced empath said she couldn't even sleep alone that night. She was so freaked out, so scared. She just felt like all these things she'd experienced were lingering with her. And as an empath, I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yeah.
And that alone was just like the most uncomfortable I've ever been. But before we move on to the last thing I want to say, my last thing I want to talk about with the Biltmore is probably one of the freakiest things that ever happened to me solo, alone by myself, was there was a night that I was hanging out with some friends, and it was like 10:30 at night. It's not too late. It was 10:30 at night. I had just flown in. They had just flown in. We were all really tired, so we decided to call it a night. Their room was on the 5th floor. My room was on the 8th floor. And their room and my room were on completely opposite ends of the elevator. Elevator's basically in the middle of each floor. They're on one side, far, far away. I'm on the other side, far, far away. So I walk out of their room, and immediately, as soon as that door shuts, I feel something next to me. I don't see anything there, but I feel it next to me. And I can't explain it. I'm like, why the fuck do I feel like there's a person literally right next to me? And I couldn't shake it. I walk to the elevator. I feel it with me the entire time. I get in the elevator. I feel it with me the entire time. I get off and walk to my room. I feel it with me. It wasn't until I closed my door to my room that I felt like that thing was no longer with me. And the reason I say this now is because thinking back to it being a little boy, it very much made sense. It felt like, I have kids, but I'll be honest, I don't like other people's kids. I have enough patience for my kids.
Yeah.
But it felt like if there was a little fucking kid next to me and I just like, go away.
Running down the hallway with you, but
even
it's
running,
not going to
just,
go in
just
your
like
room.
bothering me. You know, like when there's a little kid next to you, it's like, hey mister, hey mister, hey mister. It was
Yeah.
fucking like that. I didn't
Yeah.
feel threatened. I didn't feel like I wasn't going to make it to my room, but I did feel like there was something attached to me or next to me that shouldn't be there. And the other thing I will say about the Biltmore that creates kind of a vortex, a portal, energy source, whatever you want to call it, there are fucking mirrors everywhere.
I knew exactly what you were
and I
going to say.
don't know
before
why
you
they
said
decided to do it like this, but so when you get into the elevators,
I think it's just one of those, it's those old designs, because I feel
Yeah.
like any old hotel that I go into, they have shit like that. And that was one of the first fucking things that I said when we got there. And you get in the elevator and it's all fucking mirrors. And then you get out into the hallway and there's mirrors at each end of the hallway. So they're facing each other, which if you know anything about
you don't do that.
anything, I don't like that. It's basically reflecting that energy back to itself, and it just magnifies things. And I don't like mirrors. I have one mirror that I bought at Walmart, and I will never have a used mirror or anything like that. And so seeing those giant mirrors at the end of the hallways, it made me uncomfortable.
The hallways, the
I didn't
elevators.
even want to look at them.
Yeah, there's fucking mirrors everywhere, and there shouldn't be.
Elevator, I stare at the floor.
You have to. You have to. You have to like keep your head down. It is super uncomfortable. But that, yeah, so that's really what I wanted to talk about with the Biltmore. Those are the big scary things that have happened to me since I've been there. Those are the big things I want to hit upon. Tons more shit. I could go on about the Biltmore forever. But long story short, if you're into the paranormal, if you're looking for a good experience, if you're looking for good haunted shit, you want shit to happen to you, look no further. Biltmore Hotel, downtown Los Angeles. Go stay there. You will. You won't regret it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so moving on, we each told our own separate stories. Now we're going to tell about something that we both experienced. And as Natalie mentioned, we lived in this kind of spooky, haunted-ass apartment up until just a few years ago now.
Yeah, we actually moved in the middle of the pandemic, which was very weird. We couldn't tour the place that we live in now or anything. Luckily, we had seen it before. But yeah, I back in 2017, I went through a divorce and I moved and I was living alone. Of course, I lived in this tiny little shoebox apartment. First place I'd lived in on my own, and of course, why not? I get a fucking haunted apartment. And it started pretty slow. I was there alone for a while, but it would be just kind of little things. I got a cat not long after moving there, and I would notice sometimes she'd kind of do one of those, like, sit up and look at something. But she's also anxious, so I kind of, brushed it to the side, didn't think anything of it. But it started pretty small. I feel like that's a way any horror movie starts. But it would be little things like different lights and stuff that I have that you have to physically, like they're battery operated. You have to grab them, pick them up, flip the switch, and set it back down, would turn on. And I don't know, after 30 years of having battery operated lights and things, I've never had one just turn on by itself. And I would be a little bit dismissive about it, but it kind of picked up a little bit more. Certain things would, I feel like, get moved around the apartment. And I didn't have a lot then, so I would really notice if something was moved. And there was one night in particular, I know I have a video of it actually, from years ago, but I had fallen asleep on my couch watching TV. My cat was with me. I get up and go to the bathroom, and the way it was kind of set up, it was so small. There wasn't really a hallway. It was more of just a, 4x4 square of standing space in between the bathroom and the bedroom. And I get up and I go to the bathroom, sitting there, I'm kind of groggy-eyed, didn't turn the light on or anything, and my cat gets up on the counter and she's staring across this little space into the bedroom, something that has caught her attention. And I kind of look up and I notice this little projector light that is going across my room instead of up, and it's turned on. And this is one of those things I was talking about. You have to have a switch physically switched. It's not an easy switch. You have to grab it with your little nail and move it. It's not just like a button or anything. And it's this little kind of like spinning light that I had sitting on my nightstand that was laying on its side, turned on. And it freaked me out. But it really picked up more when you moved in.
Yeah, when I moved in, it was it ramped up big, and I don't know if I just disturbed something that was already just kind of dormant, or if it, I don't know if it was just energies that were passing through. But the apartment was older. I think they were built in the 70s, which I know that sounds weird saying it's older now, but that's 50 years of people who have come in and out. You got to think about these apartment complexes, how many people come and go.
And it was a huge complex. So, like, there were literally, there's 4 units on each floor. So there's 12 people or 12 units in each, like, building space. And, I mean, my apartment was, like, 550 square feet. It was not big.
No.
This is like most rooms for like homes now.
Yeah.
But it was, I had a few experiences before you moved in where I just I had restless sleep, or I had this weird feeling in the darkness of the bathroom that there was like something kind of looking in the bedroom, but it was pretty mild. And when you moved in and you were, obviously we're in our bedroom sleeping in the same bed, you started to feel that weird negative energy as well. And it was always coming from that little hall space and the bathroom.
Right. It was almost like that's where it just converged, which it'll make sense here in a moment why we felt it from there. But I remember one of the first moments I had was probably the first month or two I was staying there with you. It was like what you described. We were going to bed. You had already fallen asleep, and I rolled over, and I'm just facing the door that leads to that little space between the bathroom and the bedroom, so then I can see into the bedroom too, and you kind of see a little bit of the living room too. There's that little utility closet. So that's like what I could see. But the entire time, I couldn't blink. I couldn't close my eyes. I did not feel comfortable doing that because in my head, for some reason, something made me feel like there was at any moment something could come around that corner. It was like the way people describe home invasions. Like they could tell somebody was in the house, but they didn't see them yet. I felt very similar. Thankfully, I haven't been through an actual home invasion, so I can't sit here and say if that's accurate or not. I'm just comparing it to what I've heard, the closest thing, my frame of reference, what I've got. But that's what it felt like. It literally felt like somebody was...
It's a malicious energy.
It was a malicious energy. It felt like somebody was going to come around that corner and attack me and you, and how could I sleep thinking that's what was going to happen? So there was that. The next instance was, again, we're in bed, we're about to fall asleep. You had fallen asleep, I had not, but I'm literally close, I'm drifting to sleep, and the only way I can describe it is it sounded like there was a voice shouting in my ear that was right next to me, yet it also felt like it was thousands of miles away. And I don't know if anybody understands what I'm getting at, but it's the only way I can describe it, and it said my name. And at first my thought was, oh my God, is there somebody in the apartment below us or next to us, and that named Steven. Maybe they were hollering for it, but I've never heard anybody else call for Steven. I've never heard that name uttered by anybody in the vicinity. It could always happen, I guess, but it just wasn't. And again, the thing that really spooked me was not that it just sounded far away, but it also sounded like it was right in my fucking ear.
Right.
It sounded like I had headphones on, and that it was just for me.
And that was one of those moments you stirred and
I jumped up.
You jumped up, and so I woke up because I was probably still pretty lightly sleeping at that point. And you were like, was that you? I could tell you were searching for any kind of explanation.
Yeah, just anything
and
I
I'm
could
like,
say.
No, I'm facing the other way. I'm asleep. I didn't hear anything, And obviously, people of all walks of life have different schedules and things. I think we were going to bed pretty late that night, but yeah, we've never heard anything like that.
Never had
from
anything
our
like
other
that happen again.
apartments.
Never heard anybody say the name Steven again, or before that, it was just terrifying.
Yeah.
And but it really ramped up. The moment it really hit its crescendo for us was not long after that, maybe a month or two after that. It was early in the morning. I
am going to interrupt you real quick and just preface this, that when I moved in, I was desperate to find a place. I had known a friend that had lived in this complex, and I didn't tour it. I bought it. I went and I got it. And whenever I got my keys and I went in and I started kind of moving stuff in. I walked into this bathroom and immediately was like, oh, shit. Because there's a big mirror over the sink, as there is in a bathroom, but then behind it, facing it, 2 mirrors facing each other, is a medicine cabinet that's mirrored. And, you know, again, they're older. This is an old thing that they really don't do a whole lot of anymore. Just the way it was done anyway. But it made me uncomfortable. I
completely forgot about that, so you said that. Yeah.
I remember I wanted to figure out how to cover that mirror.
Right.
And I had been in there for 5 minutes, and I was like, I don't like this little mirror I want to cover. I hate that it's facing the other mirror. And being the person I am, I just came in and kind of cleansed things as a witch does and hoped for the best. And it just didn't really help with the mirrors.
No, the big crescendo was there was a morning, I was up early. I had plans with my daughter. So I was up, I was in the shower. It was like 6 a.m. Natalie didn't work that morning, so she was sleeping in. And I shower, I get out, and as normal, the mirror's fogged up. Now, keep in mind, I had just cleaned this mirror the day before, 2 days before. And when I clean the mirror, it is always the same way. I either go side to side, up and down. I don't really deviate, because why would you? You're just cleaning a fucking mirror. It's not that deep. You know, you don't want it to be streaky, so you try to clean it in a nice, organized pattern. So I do that. That's how I always do it. I'm just kind of anal about the way I clean my mirrors. I can sit here and tell you with all certainty that's how I clean them.
Yeah.
So the mirror fogs up. I'm out of the shower. I look at it. It's not. Most of the mirror is up and down the way you can see where I wiped it, right? However, bottom right-hand corner of the mirror, it's not like that. There is something very distinct.
You say bottom right hand, and it was more like a quarter of the whole fucking mirror. And this is a pretty big mirror.
That's fair. It was a big chunk of the mirror.
It's like,
but bottom right-hand corner,
it's
big
huge.
chunk of the mirror, and it's not the way I cleaned it. And I just cleaned it. But what is in there? But I can make out 2 letters written over and over again into the mirror, like when you go with the mirror, when you go with your finger and you just kind of write little doodles and letters, right?
And then the next time someone goes in and it steams up, you see it.
Exactly.
You know?
But again, we cleaned it. Neither one of us, we're both in our 30s. Neither one of us are going to fucking go through and, play with the mirror. We just don't do that. And the letters I see that were drawn into the mirror repeatedly, Z-O-Z-O, over and over and over again. Like somebody just went up there and did it so many times until their fingers couldn't do it anymore. And if you know anything,
and I have pictures of this, I will find it.
We do have pictures.
Absolutely,
we can
post it to our Instagram.
Yeah, we'll share it for you guys. But if you know anything about the paranormal, if you know anything about demons, if you know anything about Ouija, you know this demon with the letters Z-O in its name. I won't even say it.
Yeah, I don't like to say it. I feel like saying things. Saying
I cannot
names.
even speak the vampire's name.
I do give a fuck, and I won't say it.
Right.
But I'm definitely one of those, and maybe it's a little of a superstition for me. Is that there's certain things I just don't like to say the name. Obviously, if you watch any kind of,
it's not a fuck around and find out type thing.
Any kind of exorcism movie, you realize that the name. You have power or dominion over them during like an exorcism when you get its name, right? But there's something to me about saying its name that I feel like is almost inviting or giving it a power, and it's just something that I don't want to fuck around with. I've heard too many stories about this, and there's countless paranormal shows that have done Ouija board sessions trying to get it. There's people who all over the world where these stories really started to come out, and I think that's what scares the shit out of me about it, is because
there's so many bad stories. It's nobody's had a good story. It's always
they're bad stories,
it's always intense,
but it's also
always fucked up.
People who never knew each other, who probably didn't know when these stories started to kind of surface, years and years and years ago. That's just I don't believe in coincidences, and it's just enough to scare me. And the tone in your voice. Still to this day, when I think about it, was absolutely so terrifying. The way you came in and woke me up to
no,
look at this.
I immediately called you in there,
yeah.
and like I was getting ready to say, if you know anything about Ouija, then when you summon this demon, it doesn't just go Z-O or Zio, it literally goes back and forth, rapid fire.
Yeah, because the
repeatedly
name
over and over again.
It would be Zio.
Right.
But it's everyone that has the instance. It just goes back and forth. Zio.
And like I said,
and
in
that's
the mirror,
what it looks like in the mirror.
somebody repeatedly over and over again
Yeah.
wrote these letters. Why would it be these letters? So to me, my thought, like I said, I hollered for Natalie, called her in there. She sees it. I see it. We're fucking freaked out. But, the thing that makes the most sense is with as old as these apartments were, somebody probably brought a Ouija board into the apartment that we were staying, or in the nearby apartment.
I would say in any of them, because we
summoned
lived on the
this
top
fucking
floor,
demon.
and it's kind of one of those things. We started to feel like that there was kind of like a portal vortex kind of a vibe, where it felt like there was just a space of something coming and going, and
Which
not
there-
in the
there's-
sense of I didn't feel like we had dozens of ghosts coming and going and making themselves known, but I felt like there was something that wasn't really scary, and then there was something that was definitely scary. And
we had several instances where we felt, yes, we both suffer from anxiety and depression to an extent. Who doesn't? We're millennials. It is what it is. But we would have these days where we would just feel abnormally like something was just weighing us down emotionally. Like we didn't have an explanation. Like nothing bad had happened.
Right.
But we just felt like shit. And we had days, and I don't want to use the word oppressive, but it did feel kind of oppressive
it did
at certain times.
It felt very mood affecting. Like,
right.
The more we've talked about it, and even though we were in a very new relationship with each other, and we were still learning so much about each other, I felt like there were times that I was almost more hot-headed there than I ever was anywhere in my entire life.
Right.
And
there's also an area of stagnant energy too that really threw me off, and it just happened to be that area that we were talking about, of the area between the bathroom and the bedroom, that little space. It's like you could feel it. It's like there was clearly airflow. We had Natalie has goosebumps just talking about it right now. She literally just shivered. I can sit here and tell you she just shivered. But it's like you would literally walk in and there was airflow. There was a vent right there, yet dead, stagnant, fucking stale air, and we can't explain it.
But it felt like it would expand.
It did feel like it would expand.
There were days that it felt like there was nothing there at all, and then there's days that it felt like it was huge and taking over the bathroom and part of the bedroom. And the thing that's really freaky about the mirror is when I tell you we tried every cleaner,
every brand.
We got a squeegee to clean it. I started researching, like adhesive backings for mirrors, and if there's some, because I know with a lot of the old mirrors, you start to get, they're silver backed. I didn't think that it would be in this shitty little apartment.
Right.
But it still could have been an old mirror, like what things I could look for to see marks come through on the backing, things like that.
We tried cleaning it with salt,
but
which
the thing
everybody
is,
recommended. That didn't do any good.
Nothing. Vinegar mixtures, all sorts of stuff. But the thing that was so scary is one day it was just not there. And, I'm not a hot shower person. Stevie is. He showers in hellfire. So,
reminds me of home.
Right. So it was always steamy whenever you would shower, and sometimes it wasn't there, and then sometimes it was, and
right.
it was
almost like it was telling us I'm here.
Right.
Right. It was and
really, that's
how
what
we felt. It felt fucked up. We're like, oh my god, it's here, it's not here. It comes and goes as it pleases.
That's why I say it was very portal-y feeling, because there would be days there was nothing oppressive, and then there's days you come home and you're like, fuck, it's here again.
Yeah.
And it started to amp up as we started to, I keep getting goosebumps. I'm like, I know it sounds pretty simple, but it was truly terrifying.
Yeah.
And, again, I've dealt with a lot of different things throughout the years, and hopefully we can talk a lot more about those in the future, different episodes. But this place it got worse, and it felt so scary, and it felt like it.
Especially as once we decided we were moving.
Yeah, when we were moving, and we started to pack.
Amped up really bad. Because
to the point of moving things again. Right. I had little things, the first few months that I was there by myself, it was maybe 6 or 7 months. And, the little things that would move, it never really felt too malicious. It was more the feelings from that bathroom at night. But as we started packing, we had this huge closet, the giant, like, kind of accordion style, they open outdoors. It was like the whole wall of one of our bedrooms.
Right. Now, one thing I want to point out about these doors is one of them was fucking stuck. Like, it
Yeah,
refused
so
to
one of them
move.
always popped off the hinge. You'd have to almost, like, lift the door off the carpet a little bit
Right.
to
It
open
wasn't easy to fucking get this thing to
Right.
move.
The handle had popped off because why not, give, like, a tiny piece of plastic for a handle
That's
on a
that
door
fucking
that's like
landlord special.
50 pound door. But yeah, and the other one had always stayed pretty well on track. It slid open pretty easy, but the other one did not. And we were always pretty particular about keeping them closed because my cat likes to chew on socks. So obviously
Yeah, we go through socks like they're fucking candy because this cat eats them all the time.
She likes to just chew little holes and leave them. So, and we had like one of our hampers in there. So we were always pretty careful about keeping this closet closed. And in the middle of packing, there was a day that I came home and I was like, oh, damn, I thought maybe one of us left it open. And it was just maybe 6 inches open. And it was the one that wasn't hard to move. So I figured...
And I'm known for forgetting shit. I'm known for being forgetful. So when she brought it to my attention, I was like, oh, damn. I left this morning and forgot to close it all the way. That's my fault. It's on me.
And again, it was the one that was on track. It was easy to slide, and I didn't think anything of it. And then about a week later, it happened again. Same door, the easy to open one, but it was open much further. And the thing that scared me about this one is I had come home, laid on the bed, sitting on my phone, doing whatever, waiting for him to get home. We were going to go out, do something, see a movie, get dinner, whatever. And when we come home and I go back into the bedroom, I'm stopped and I'm staring. And Stevie walks in, he looks at me and he's like, no, I know I closed this morning. I'm like, no, I know you did because I was already here and it was closed.
Yeah, it was I think you originally thought it was me or something I had done, but this time I was more certain this time that I'd closed it because I didn't want that to happen again. Especially again, I'm forgetful, but if it happened recently, I'm not gonna fuck up that quickly again.
But this was I had seen it close, we left, came back, it's open.
It was open.
And it happened one more time where it was open like that, but then
wide open.
The week that we were set to leave, basically everything in the home was packed. We come home and the one that's hard to open, the one that you have to lift and slide or else it's just dragging along on the carpet, is wide fucking open. And
I definitely knew that wasn't me.
And I just, right. But the thing is, that's weird about this, the closet, is right in front of it, there were multiple times that we would walk through the room, and it was almost like you walk through this...
It was that stagnant air that I was talking about. It was
right, but it felt like it was almost staticky. Like, it was like a space that you were walking through.
Like when you get too close to a tube TV.
Yes.
Yeah, it was that static. Yes.
That feeling. And... it was almost like you could back up and stick your arm forward and you would feel it just in this one space. And there was no vent there. The vent was over on the other side of the room. It was just so weird. Right. And that's why I said it always felt like it would kind of move.
The thing is, it was a small room, though. There was airflow. That's the fucking thing. It's like the vent, that's what I was trying to say earlier. The vent was it wasn't, right there, but there was airflow. There was no fucking reason for that spot to be just stagnant, dead fucking air.
Yeah. It was almost like walking through an invisible column of static electricity.
TV static. Like I said, that's the best thing I can describe it. It's like if you're our age and you remember TV static, it was like when you'd get your hand too close to the TV and you'd feel the static coming off of it.
Yeah.
But it felt like that. Imagine that raining fucking down on you, and that's how this spot in the room felt.
And thinking about it now, it's almost kind of scary to me. It's like, was it a spot or was it something there that we couldn't see?
Were we?
Because it was there every now and then in front of the closet, which had started to open the last 2-3 weeks that we were there before we moved. But that was also the same feeling you would sometimes get in the little square hallway space. You would get it in the bathroom.
Yep.
And maybe once or twice kind of in the living room, but really not in that area much. It was always coming from that fucking bathroom.
Yeah.
And glad to say the new place we moved, nothing came with us. I was very careful about that. I
Right.
even cleansed my mirror before we moved it. I almost left it there. Cause
this is a newer building, so not as much residual energy here. Not that we can think of, at least. There was a woman who loved to craft here, and we still get her fucking mail. But hey, if that's the worst we have to put up with here, I guess we're doing okay.
Yeah, that's again, it might sound like something pretty small and simple to somebody, but when you're living it, and I really hope, we've got one more week before Halloween. I really still would love to have people send us some of their ghost stories, or I don't care how big or small it is. I don't care if you fucked with a Ouija board. I don't care if you were just like, oh, I saw an apparition once in my home, or, dead grandma, sitting in her old favorite rocking chair.
Right.
But I would love to hear more people's stories, because
just
talking about ours, like, I'm giving myself chills, but I want to hear theirs.
Yeah, we've heard ours. We've told ours thousands of times, so we want to hear yours. horrorzoidpod@gmail.com, horrorzoidpod on Instagram, horrorzoid on Twitter, TikTok, all the good shit. We're out there.
Everywhere.
Fucking hit us up. We love your stories. So let us know.
horrorzoid.com will take you to all of our links. Now, something else we kind of wanted to talk about are some of our real paranormal investigators, shows, YouTube channels, things like that have kind of inspired us really to push further into the unknown.
Absolutely, and we just talked about it before the episode. We're going to go on some haunts, some tours. So we'll have some more spooky content for you guys here very soon, not only on the podcast, but on the pages like TikTok and everything as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely want to give some love to some of these men and women who are out there in the field every day investigating ghosts so that we don't have to. The first ones I want to give a shout out to, Grant and Jason, the original Ghost Hunters show. That I think that's where we all got started. That's the first one I remember being on TV on a weekly basis. Like, those guys broke the ground for so many people.
Unfortunately, they weren't the first ones that I saw. I remember seeing them, but Zach Baggins, I really don't like him. However, back in the beginning when they started, I really felt like he really did witness something. He really did want to seek out the paranormal and find things. A lot of their beginning seasons, they're really good at going to try to debunk things that they've heard or seen. And then
we fucking hate Zach Baggins in this house. I just want to say he is public enemy number one. We fucking hate him.
I don't care for him at all. He could have been different then, but I feel like after seasons and seasons and everyone oogling over him, even though he's really not that great looking to me, he's just buff.
You mean you don't like his blue steel that he does?
Yeah, no.
My name is Zach Baggins.
Always has a giant thing of hair gel, I think, in those early seasons. Ugh. But I also knew people that met him and said he was a giant dick. So I don't know. There's something about the way he became. I feel like it kind of took over what his initial goal was. So I love the first few seasons, but that also leads us to someone that used to work with them that actually left, which is Nick Groff. He went on to do some of his own shows. One of our favorites he did was called Paranormal Lockdown. And I really liked it because they wouldn't just spend one night. They'd spend 3 fucking days in a place doing...
Literally locked down for 72 hours. They couldn't leave. They were there. They had to sleep on cots. Yeah. And so not just cots, but like uncomfortable... like they slept in
sleeping
body
bag
chutes.
on concrete. Yeah. The body chute.
Yeah.
But yeah.
He did that show with Katrina Weidman.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah, she does a lot of paranormal shows as well.
Yeah, and I loved their methods. I loved the way that they would give a lot of research about the places that they would go to, honestly, is something that I really like. Here in Indiana locally, we have, some spooky places. But just the history of the buildings or what happened there. And they always kind of touch on that. And I really, really like that. Instead of just going, hey, this place is really haunted because a bunch of people got killed here. It's like... you get all these really cool stories.
And I think, like I said, that's what I enjoyed the most about it. Is it focused on the history? It wasn't just that we're here to find ghosts. It's we're here to learn about this place. We're here to, because I think that's what helps understand, the activity that's going on in these places. Kind of like what I talked about earlier with the Biltmore.
Sure.
Is if you understand the history, I think not that you're less scared, but you're less intimidated by it for sure. Because then you just realize these are just real people, energies that have passed through.
Right.
You know, of course these things are going to kind of hang around. Of course these things are going to kind of linger. And that's how Nick and Katrina always approached it. That's why I think Paranormal Lockdown really appealed to us.
Well, that and, you know, the 72-hour thing, you know, I feel like some shows, they kind of work up every bump that, you know, is in the night. And it's like, there's a lot of places that are just going to be windy, big, creaky, old. I mean, some of these places are over 100 years old. And, you know, they did like Paranormal Lockdown UK where they go to these old ass castles and shit. It's
Right.
like, of course there's going to be fucking noises and stuff there. So I love the way that they're really skeptical about what they get. But 72 hours, when you get, you know, something almost like an apparition type on camera, I feel is more believable than just walking in and spending 8 hours in a place and going, well, we saw a full body apparition. Not that that can't happen, but it just made their evidence a little bit more believable to me.
It was more believable. It was more realistic. They didn't freak out over every little thing the way Zach and Aaron do, where it's like, you know, it's like, oh, listen to the spirit box. It's the dead. Oh my God, it's the dead. No, they didn't.
Without any kind of, you know, sitting down, having other people think about it. And that's one of those things, I think, with most paranormal shows where if they tell you what they're hearing, that's what you're going to hear. You can't hear anything else. But if you just have it and it's there and you hear it, like, that's fucking scary.
Right. I appreciate paranormal shows where they don't try to lead you to what you're supposed to hear. Like,
and some of them, they're just like, one of the new ones, actually, that I saw a video on TikTok that Haunting Season talked about life after death, and he was talking about a group called Charm City Paranormal, which I've since binged all of their YouTube videos, and they're fantastic, and they've grown exponentially, which is really cool. But that's something that they do even on their videos, where there's question marks for the EVP because they don't know what it's saying,
right,
but there's something that's there. Them. You know, it doesn't always have to be that you know, they're saying something to you. It could just be noises that are unexplained.
Right. There's just some type of ethereal sound, voice.
Right.
There's something coming through. We can't tell what it is. It's
which is like literally what EVP means.
Right.
Like
electronic voice phenomenon.
Yeah. So, you know, having it and not just shoving it down your throat for what every single thing is saying is really cool to me. I really, really like what they're doing. I hope that they come to Indiana, because one of the places that you and I have gone to and kind of walked the grounds, and we've done a tour of the pathology building, is Indiana has the Central State Hospital. Most of it's gone now, but it was a sanatorium, and there's a lot of spooky stuff. One of the places you can just go have coffee now and live there. But
we've been there multiple times. It's incredibly creepy, spooky, all of the above. One of those, you know, it's not as notable as like places like Waverly Hills,
right?
And some of the other, you know, the sanatoriums, tuberculosis units that are out there, you know, that housed all of these people under these really unfortunate circumstances. But yeah, Central State Hospital here in Indiana, one of our favorite haunted spots to hit, for sure. But yeah, while we're talking about some of paranormal experts that we really appreciate their work, we got to talk about two of our recent favorites. Shane Madej, Ryan Bergara started out on BuzzFeed Unsolved. You've probably seen their videos. Their memes have popped up.
Oh yeah.
They're everywhere. They're really,
I mean,
they've really become popular. But now they have their
Shane's
own.
the bridge owner, the Demon Goat Bridge.
He owns a bridge. But Shane and Ryan now have their own show on a YouTube channel called Watcher, and it's called Ghost Files. They also do a show called Too Many Spirits, where they read ghost stories while they get shit-faced, which I appreciate.
It's fun.
And but yeah, Ghost Files, it's a straight-up paranormal investigation show now. They go to these awesome spots that are haunted, including Waverly Hills.
I would say, Waverly Hills was their first episode. They've done Alcatraz, and they're going on, but it's really cool. Again, I feel like I kind of relate to them because I'm kind of like the Ryan, where I'm scared shitless and I don't want really things to talk back to me, even though I'm curious enough. And you're a bit of that realistic skeptic, the way Shane is, where you're just kind of like, okay, demons.
Right. Yeah. It's like
me, your boy.
I don't walk in and automatically think every place is haunted. Like I said, I try to find a realistic explanation for everything. And usually at the end of the day, it's, you know, Shane had a quote in one of his recent episodes where he said, I just don't trust a lot of these people when it comes to their paranormal experiences. And I think I'm the same way. I don't trust a lot of people. I mean, I don't want to get into it too much, but, you know, we talk about the Warrens. a lot, and how they were just shitty people who exploited a lot of the people who went to them for help.
Right.
So yeah, I'm in that category of like, after hearing stories about how shitty people like the Warrens were, how these people like Zach Baggins who are clearly exploiting people for
Been very exploitative
Right.
in some of their episodes.
I have a hard time trusting and believing a lot of experiences that people have and a lot of stories that people have. That's why, when I talk about the Biltmore, I've personally experienced that firsthand. The apartment that we had, I experienced that firsthand.
Sure.
You tell me you've experienced something, I'm going to approach it with a skeptical mind. And I think
Right.
that's where I come in with my mindset. Like you said, you are more believing, more understanding of people because of the experiences that you've had. We both
Sure.
come from different vantage points because of the experiences we've had, which is so fascinating to me. But we both have very different approaches to it.
And you said something to me years ago where you said, I believe that you had an experience you can't explain. And that's always kind of resonated with me because while, some of the stuff I feel like they present evidence, and it's like, to me, I'm like, well, that could have been anything in this giant old building. But if you really feel like it was, or if there was something specifically happening to you, then yeah, sure. But you do have to kind of take a lot of those things that happen with a grain of salt, because like the episode of Shane and Ryan on Alcatraz, you're on a fucking island in an old jail. There's going to be noises. There's going to be all sorts of
spooky
things.
noises.
But, whenever you hear something like banging on bars, like, yeah, I don't necessarily think that's going to be an easy thing to replicate without something doing it. So I just, it can be spooky, but there's definitely some compelling evidence that these people have got.
Yeah. I don't doubt that there is compelling evidence. There's very real shit that's happened to people. There's very real shit that's happened to me. But my goal is to eliminate the things that it really could have been, because 9 times out of 10 it's something real and explainable. There is that 1 out of 10 times, that 10% chance though, that it was otherworldly, that it was an energy that we cannot see or explain.
Well, that's something I remember on Ghost Hunters that I really liked, where he's like, I don't know, let me look at this. And, they observe their surroundings when they feel like they've seen something, especially. Right. Seeing is difficult. Your mind plays tricks on you. Your mind tries to fill in voids where you're not seeing things. So whenever there could be a reflective light from a road somewhere, where there's cars driving by, that could be something.
Yeah, that's why the last guy I want to talk about.
A lot of things can look like orbs.
Yeah, and the last guy I want to talk about is one that you introduced me to, Josh Gates.
He's my favorite.
Yeah, Josh Gates.
Do yourself a favor and go watch Destination Truth. He does Expedition Unknown, which goes into a lot of really cool stuff. Some still paranormal. But Destination Truth, he did a lot of cryptid searching and paranormal searching. And he is so good at not just accepting what he has. He looks for reasons why he could have heard something. He looks for reasons why he could have seen something. He goes to different experts to go, does this sound like an animal in the area to you? And they're like, oh yeah, it sounds like this animal. And then they play the animal sound. You're like, oh, well, that's definitely
this forgotten wild bird whose population is only exclusive to this one island where you just happen to be. And it's like, fuck, of course it is.
It's like, if you're doing an area that's near like jungle terrain, there's gonna be a lot of shit at night that you coming from Indiana aren't gonna fucking know what it sounds like.
Right, like he did a whole thing on Easter Island, which I thought was fucking tremendous. But Josh Gates he's an actual archaeologist. He's like he is 100% legitimate archaeologist. Maybe even a paleontologist or something like that.
He's all sorts of
He's got a lot of that background, so he does approach things from a very, not skeptical standpoint, but he's, very similar to what I said, how I approach things. And maybe he's part of the big motivation that the reason I do approach things the way I do. He looks for the real explanation first. And if he can't explain it through real means, through legitimate 100% of this world, methods, then that's when he's like, this is paranormal.
Yeah.
But it's very rare that he has to do that. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, all these experiences that people have, I don't discredit these people. I don't discount them. But there are so many realistic, real world explanations for a lot of these things that you have to rule out first before you jump to paranormal. So when I say I'm a
100%.
skeptic, it's not that I don't believe, it's the fact that I've got to rule those things out before I can sit here and say it's ghosts.
Right. And I feel you, coming from a place, you could be listening to our stories and be like, well, anything can happen in an apartment complex. There's tons of people and
Of course.
things going in and out. And, but there were things that I looked for reasons that I couldn't find. And that's why it really scared me.
Exactly.
And, talking about Josh Gates with his episodes of Destination Truth, there were a lot of them, even the cryptid episodes, where like they can't explain a fur sample.
Yep.
They can't explain a footprint in the Himalayas. Like he has a footprint in a museum somewhere that they think is a Yeti. Like, their shit, they exhaust all routes of logic before they land on where they land. And I really, really like that about him.
I respect that and appreciate about that to him too. And like you said, going back to our stories of the apartment, of the hotel, things like that. When you were a kid in your childhood home, of course, yes, there are things that could have manipulated our mindset, and that's I don't doubt that. I'm not sitting here saying 100% it was paranormal. I'm just saying trust when I tell you. I tried to rule out explanations, legitimate explanations first before I jump to this is paranormal.
Sure.
And yes, I do admit that staying in a spooky ass hotel with a lot of legends and lore surrounding it, I'm sure that influenced me to an extent.
Yeah.
And going back,
But you guys all heard someone bang on a door when no one was there.
That is inexplicable. There's like I said, I tried to rule out with somebody running up or down the stairs, shit
Right.
like that. Like I couldn't do it. So yeah,
Right.
like when I sit here and say something happened. Something fucking happened. Like,
Yeah.
I can't explain. I don't
it's
have
not
a real
like,
world explanation.
As you were telling it, I was sitting here thinking like, oh, someone's going to be like, oh, it was a stairwell. Anyone could there could be weird air pressures or something. But there's something different about air pressure slamming a door and then someone banging on a door.
Exactly. The door was shut.
Right.
And something slammed into it. Something physically slammed into it. That door did not move. I was facing it. The door did not move. Something went into it.
And, a lot of our moments in the apartment, we were fully awake. Yeah, there were parts where we were kind of drifting to sleep, and I know a lot of
and I don't rule out that it could have been something like that too. Yeah,
there's definitely that in between of you going to sleep where you start to go into the dream state where you can see or hear things. But I feel like it was, some of those could have been pushed off as that, but some of them I'm like, no, I was awake enough in bed to know. And I also had things, we didn't really mention it earlier, that animals are very sensitive to things. And when I watch my cat watch something walk across the room and she's got her back arched up and she's a very calm cat, behavior wise, that's fucking scary.
Right. I'll sit here and I'll second that. Yeah. Our cat, who coincidentally is named Ghost, she is. She's very well behaved. She's very calm, very chill. But yeah, you're right. She's had moments where she will look and stare and
follow
and people have said pets and animals are very much in tune with things that we are not, and you've got to trust that. And that's
trust your animals
those,
and trust your kids.
That is one of those things. Yeah,
kids, their minds are so open. I feel like they kind of go into that category where
they don't know how to be closed off.
Right. You've even had moments with your daughter will say things and you're like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
No, don't say shit like that. That's scary.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure I probably had things like that as a kid that I said that my parents were pretty dismissive of, and it just wasn't enough for me to remember.
Yeah.
But just be open about it.
So yeah, we're far from calling ourselves Mulder and Scully here, but we've had enough paranormal experiences ourselves. We have a lot of experts that we look to, and the reason we kind of wanted to mention them is, we want you to check them out too, and see what you think, and give us your feedback. Do who are your favorite paranormal investigators? There's a ton of people on YouTube. I've seen a ton of people go through the Biltmore.
Yeah.
I can tell you for a fact I've seen a ton of videos of people going through the Biltmore. Some are credible, some aren't. We saw people going through the Cecil Hotel with some of their investigations and the case of Alyssa Lamb. So there's a ton of paranormal investigators out there.
Yeah.
So let us know who you like. Let us know what you think. Show us some of the evidence that you have.
Yeah. Oh man, that would be amazing.
We'd love to see some of your evidence.
Yeah. I, Charm City Paranormal, when I found them, they're still, as far as, the big ghost hunters go, they were a little smaller on YouTube, and they've grown exponentially, which is really fucking exciting because I really love what they're doing. And I know that there's so many more out there. So if you're listening and you're a paranormal investigator, or even if you just do local stuff and you go around, I want to see it.
You just got some fun videos with you and your friends fucking around? Absolutely. Send it to us. we want to see it. We want to
Yeah.
share it with
Or
our
tag
folks
us.
too. Yeah. It's what we love to do. So yeah, thank you for joining us for this very special episode. It was great to kind of take a break from talking about movies, talk about some of our real ghost stories. You know, you can listen to this if you're sitting around a campfire this fall and you're looking to get spooked out. Maybe listen to our stories, listen to
Yeah.
this episode. You're welcome to. We've had a great time. We hope you had a great time. And next week, we're back to movies because it's Halloween weekend.
Hell
We're talking
yeah.
our favorite Halloween movies. So yeah, of course, we're going to talk about Michael Myers. Of course, we're going to talk about Trick or Treat. Of course, we're going to talk about all the big ones, all the heavy
Terrifier.
hitters.
Terrifier too.
House of a
I
Thousand
mean-
Corpses, 31, fucking all the big ones. We're going to hit them all. So tune in
Yes.
next week. We got a great episode for you. Don't forget to drop us, some reviews on Apple Podcasts or wherever you consume this podcast. Drop us a review. We love to get pushed up and get more people involved in the party. So thank you. And with that, we will leave you with this.
They're here.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every weekend. Follow us on TikTok @HorrorZoidPod and send emails to horrorzoidpod@gmail.com with your thoughts, questions, and stories for us to read on a future episode. To all our Zoids out there, stay scary.